This video is proudly sponsored by my friends over at Mid-America Fence Supply.
Gate safety has been a topic of conversation in this industry for over 20 years. You know, when the industry came together, when AFA and NOMA and CLFMI and IDA came together to create a new standard for automated gate safety, to educate people on what UL 325 meant to the industry in terms of automated gate safety. Like, this gate safety movement started many years ago, and now it's been reinvigorated and kind of this new, it's kind of an evolution. The example that I like to use is, for years and years and years, people didn't use seatbelts. And when seatbelts became law, or seatbelts became part of the way the car industry promoted safety, people were like, I'm not using a seatbelt. Seatbelts. And then more and more people started using seatbelts. And then there was a lot of innovation. And then now we have airbags, and now we have multiple airbags, and now we have even more anti-braking. And so the way that the car industry and safety in the car industry evolved is kind of what we're seeing in our industry now with regard to safety of our products. And we're seeing a lot of innovation happening on how to create integrated fallover posts, or how to create chains that are automatic, that are part of the installation best practices, and to prevent fallover on swing gates. So when we start talking about raising awareness or educating people on how to create safer products, that's also part of what we're talking about here, about professionalism and being part of something like Fence Tech. Is it helps elevate you and your business, especially around a particular topic. And in this case, in Oklahoma City, we raised the Quanbeck story and told the Quanbeck story, and Eric Quanbeck was there talking about his son Alex, who was killed by a falling gate. And tragically, we had that same thing happen this November with a little girl in Arizona. And so our people, the awareness is there, and now people are saying, educate me, help me educate my people, help me be more professional when I'm talking to customers about this issue. And that's where the industry is, and it's coming from all over. It's coming from AFA, it's coming from Fence Workers Association, it's coming from consultants in the industry. It is coming from everywhere. And guess what? Here we are solving more problems for the industry. And it's a beautiful thing, born out of tragedy, but it's a beautiful thing to see our industry come together to address this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always been a topic of conversation, right? Gate safety has always been something since I was a kid that was talked about. So it's not like this is an entirely new movement, right? This isn't an entirely new thought, but really how I view it is kind of like restoking those flames, right?
Absolutely.
They've been kind of smoldering. The embers have been there, but now we're restoking it to bring the conversation back to the forefront and hopefully enact real change as soon as possible.
So if you think about the adoption of specifically around automated gates, so the standard for that is F2200. When I'm talking to people about, you're talking about stoking the fires, the analogy that I use, it's like a baton handoff in a relay race.
Okay. Yeah.
So these folks from the past 20 years, both on the contractor, the installer side, and on the manufacturer side, have been pounding it. Gate safety, automated gate safety, automated gate safety. Well, this last year, with ASTM updating the F1184 standard, a lot of those safety elements moved from the automated gate side into the rolling gate side, into the manual gate side. And so in my mind, that's a baton handoff. All this,
Sure.
if you talk to your dad about gate safety and he's going to go, man, we're still talking about this. No, it's an evolution. We're now talking about the difference between seatbelts and the addition of airbags.
Right.
We're now talking about the way things happen differently. And I'm very proud, I have to say, I'm very proud of the way the majority of our industry is looking at this, saying we need to raise awareness. We need to educate people. We need professional certifications that denote expertise in this area. We need to engage the code officials on this who are trying to enact safety in their communities. We need to talk about licensing. So I'm proud of the way the industry is accepting this multi-pronged approach to gate safety. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, as part of Tony's Fence Business Conference, he dedicated a portion, a whole afternoon, to the Gate Safety Summit, where the industry came together, right? Yep. It wasn't one organization, it was multiple organizations, right? Yep. It was folks from all over the country that came together in the room. I think there was like 85 or 90 folks in the room. And you want to talk about a passionate group of individuals. And here's why. And so there were several very impassioned, just, I don't want to say speeches, they weren't really planned, but from people from the perspective of, listen, I've got kids, right? I've got a 15, a 6, and a 2-year-old. My 6-year-old will climb anything possible, right? Yeah. So you had better believe when I came home, we had a conversation about gate safety. We're like, listen, you don't close gates you don't know. You don't climb on gates. You don't, all this sort of stuff. But we heard a lot of impassioned individuals that came from that perspective. Like, listen, we are all parents, or the majority of us here are parents, or will become parents, or have been parents. We can put ourselves in this, in this position of knowing, or at least thinking we know what that family would go through that had, any sort. And obviously, fatalities are awful. Right. If we could wave a magic wand today and make it go away, I think you'd see a whole room full of checkbooks get opened. Like, let's end this today. What's the cost? Let's pool our resources and get this done. So, but also part of the conversation that maybe wasn't talked about as much, but has, in a significant impact as well, is maiming. Right. So the kids or adults, I mean, we're focusing on kids because that's been in the news, or adults that are, listen, some of these gates, a large cantilever gate or an overhead track gate while installing, if it were to fall, I mean, that could be a career changing event, right, for an adult.
So Joe, what strikes me, and yes, we are talking about gate safety with children because I think we're reacting to these two very public incidences, the one in San Rafael, California in 2019, and then this one now. So we're reacting to that, but you're absolutely right. When we look at gate safety, it's not just kids that are getting hurt or killed. It's also employees who are closing a gate and having that gate come off its track or come out of its supporting mechanisms and those are just as tragic in mine. It's just that those aren't making the news. Those are accidents that are happening on a work site, and people are kind of just bruising by it. But those are, talk about, you're right, career changing accidents.
Yeah.
And here's what strikes me about people talking after. So when we were talking and there were a lot of passionate opinions during that conversation. I was shocked on how many people have a gate story. Well, this happened to me out in the field, or this happened to me when I was on a construction site with a gate, or one of my guys went out to do XYZ and this was the problem.
Yeah.
So how this gets personalized by so many people in the industry, those stories now need to come to light so that people recognize this could happen to me. That's the thing that when you start to raise awareness, and you want somebody to take action, you want them to recognize that could happen to me.
Of course.
That could happen to my company.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So,
or my kids. And like you say, it's not during one of these after hours conversations at the event, we had heard from someone who they had a child maimed by a gate.
Yep.
Right. And so that was kind of their point, is like, listen, we're focusing on the fatalities, which is absolutely horrid. Like, if we can alleviate that tomorrow, we should. But also, we're not taking into consideration just how many gates fall but don't result in a fatality. Kids, adults, and all that. So I think it's good to emphasize that too, right? Is, listen, we're not just talking about, because here's why I say this. We're talking about big, heavy gates that could absolutely devastate someone if they fell on them. We need to be talking about gates in general, right? So, like, we focus on the greatest threat, absolutely, but don't let it stop there, right? It's also, we've got slide gates out here that may weigh a couple 100 pounds. Is it going to cause catastrophic physical injury? Probably not, but could it maim somebody? Absolutely. If my 6-year-old tried to climb our sliding gate and the top roller was loose or whatever, it could absolutely tip him over. And who knows? Who knows what happens then? So I say that to say we absolutely need to focus on the biggest threats first, but I want to make sure it doesn't end there.
So the doesn't end there is where I'd like to kind of put an exclamation point on this part of our conversation.
Yeah.
One of the things that struck me this past week when we were meeting at Tony's event was yes. So here's where we can be helpful as AFA. We have to maintain this. So going back to the relay race, if this started 20 years ago and it was industry and the industry bought into this, now we have to reinvigorate the entire industry. And it doesn't matter who creates an initiative to educate people or who does this. It doesn't matter. It's all of us kind of rowing in the same direction or getting ready to hand off that baton, or hold the baton rather. That's the key. That's the key for now. And then where we can be the most helpful, where AFA frankly can be the most helpful, is having the resources or bringing the resources together, gathering the resources to make this sustainable, to make this a topic of conversation, because this is constantly evolving, and
Sure.
Especially now in the social media age, especially now, these things aren't going to happen. Now when an accident happens, it's going to pop up, and we're going to continue to see these things pop all over where we might not have been aware of them in the past.
Right. Well, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do we have a sustained movement to eliminate gate fatalities and minimize gate accidents?
Absolutely.
And that's the conversation that's happening now. That actually, tying it back to FinTech,
Sure.
We'll continue that conversation at FinTech. We'll have some really good resources available for the industry to use. We're going to be highlighting other initiatives from other organizations around this space. So this isn't about who can out safety someone else. This is about let's come together and create really good messages around gate safety, because there's plenty of audiences. There's schools, there's employers, there's every time we throw up one of these chain link fences around a construction site, let's not forget, that's these temporary gates that are going up for a short period of time. Some of them are giant.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as dangerous.
And just as, if not more so, because nobody thinks, this gate's only going to be up for 3 months. The welds are happening quickly, or they're not being maintained properly. That's ultimately what happens, Joe. In my estimation, from trying to understand this, is that they may be installed perfectly at these schools. The gates may be beautifully and safely installed.
Yeah.
If they're not maintained, then they become dangerous. Or if a bus at a school, if a bus hits a gate, and the facilities people say, it's a chain link gate, I can fix it. Oh,
That's fine.
it's a gate. I'll bring out my welding kit and I'll fix it. They need to call one of you guys, somebody who's an expert in gates, to give them an opinion on what it is to make that gate safe.
Yeah, and so this is I'm going to give one example how I think we're going to help address this, and everyone can obviously create their own examples. But when we were talking about school, I mean that's the most recent, right? Was at a school. So let's talk about school and thinking about. So we're Springfield, Missouri, is the largest public school district in the state of Missouri, and it's in our backyard. So we have a great opportunity here. Now, here's the thing with schools, though, at least this school, like they have 40, 50 maintenance, building and grounds folks. They're not hiring us to come deal with gates. They have a team, right? Okay. So how do we get this message to that team? I think for us, it's going to be, twice a year lunch and learns. Invite those guys over and gals over. Let's feed you. Let's show you practical application. We've got gates here. We can show you here. This is what fallover protection looks like. This is what I'm inspecting when I look at these gates. This is what you can see. Also, here's our phone number. Take a picture of this. If you see a gate, in your example, if you have an incident with a gate, a bus hits it, a car hits it, whatever, call me. I will come out. I will inspect it. There will not be a consultation charge. I'll tell you how I would fix it. I'll give you my recommendation because I want these gates safe. Right. Ultimately, we want safe gates because, to bring this back around to professionalism, that's something a professional industry would do, right? Is to look out for the industry, look out for the people that are affected by the industry.
I'm starting to hear stories like that and all over the country where people have reached out to their school districts. They were so moved by the Quanbeck story or this little girl in Arizona. They're so moved by that and they want to take action. One of the things that's so powerful about our industry is our commitment to communities. And this just isn't on the contractor side. This is on the supplier side too. We are invested in our people and we are invested in our communities. And to hear stories like you just relayed, that's going to be how we make a difference, and we keep the juice that's how we power this momentum. That's how we power this momentum is 1,000 little activities like that all over the country.
Absolutely.
With people reaching out. And sometimes it's going to be schools, other times it's going to be parks, other times it's going to be, and those are all different opportunities. And Joe, I commend you for your activity and others too. I mean, you and I are talking now, but those folks out there in their local communities who are committed to doing something here are really demonstrating that professionalism we were talking about.
Yeah, schools and parks and recreation are the low-hanging fruit here.
They are.
I mean, look at any
churches, schools, and parks.
There you go. That's right. I hadn't even thought about churches, but you're absolutely right.
That's the low-hanging fruit. Churches, schools, and parks. It's where people are congregating, where they're driving to. Because I'm telling you, it's the repeated use and the lack of maintenance that I'm hearing is the consistent themes.
Yes.
So if you install a stop, and that stop is installed correctly in 2023 or 2024 when people are watching this, and that stop over time gets bent and turns into a ramp, that's because of repeated use.
Yes.
If that stop breaks or that fallover post wasn't installed or doesn't prevent the gate falling at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
Those are the type of things that I just think you all are going to know as a professional that a church facility maintenance person's not going to recognize, or a school maintenance person isn't going to know. That's why it's so valuable to have experts, y'all, in your communities addressing that. Churches, parks, schools.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing is these building and grounds folks, they don't know what they don't know. Right. And these are people that are probably stretched thin as it is. I mean, they're like every other employer, right?
Absolutely.
It's stretched thin. so we need to make it something where we say, this is what you look for. This is what you look for. It's as easy as providing slides of good gate, bad gate, good fall over, no fall over. This is what you need to look for, right? Here's the top 5 things, because I think the most recent incident very well could have been avoided had there been, at least at a base level, an inspection procedure, right? An inspection process.
So the latest news that I've seen on that is so here's what's tragic about both the Quanbeck story in California and this story in Arizona. Here's the latest that I know, and information is still coming out coming out about this. But
Absolutely.
there was a maintenance request that went in on that gate in Arizona.
Oh.
About a week, about 10 days before the accident, there was a maintenance request that whoever filled out the maintenance request said, "Oh, I need some welding on the back gate, on the gate near the kitchen." And I think because people can recognize that they need help with a problem, but they don't either have the technical or the knowledge on how to solve it.
Yeah.
That's the tragedy. So when that gate fell in California, in the Quanbeck case, that gate had fallen a month before. And so when you start to see this pattern of people recognizing that there's a problem, and this is to your point about either they don't know what they don't know, or they don't have the resources to fix that. That's why you all need to be in contact. You as the fence professional, the fence expert, need to be connected to those people. So
yeah,
and I think the key message here that I'd like people to understand is that the industry is taking action on this, and we are coming together on this, and we are holding the baton now that started 20 years ago, 23 years ago. And we are going to elevate it to a point where when something happens to a gate on a facility, they're calling you as the professional.
Absolutely.
It's that sophisticated. Just like you would if a pipe in the middle of winter burst, you wouldn't sit there and try to fix it yourself. You'd call somebody to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want people to think, AFA wants people to think of you as the fence professional like they would think of if a pipe burst in the middle of winter.
Yep. Or the lights went out.
Or the lights, it's one thing to go flip the breaker box. There's a whole nother thing if the transformer in your front yard just exploded.
Right.
There's a whole nother, let's call somebody who actually knows how to fix this fried breaker panel.
Yeah, your wall outlet starts smoking. You don't start troubleshooting that yourself.
That's right. Call an electrician. That's when we talk about professionalism, it's really hard for people to define, but it's not hard to describe. Professionalism is when there's a problem, they call an expert.
Yep. Do the right thing because it's the right thing.
Absolutely.
Hey.